Hey folks, Ghost Mafia here. Doing the second video, the walk around. I appreciate all the good comments and all the views I got on the first video of my 97 Suzuki TL1000S walk around. But as I've been saying for a while, the bike's changed quite a bit and I needed to make a new update. I'll go ahead and we're going to start walking around now. Here's another overview. I'll probably cover the same parts I covered in the first video, but I'll cover everything this time. If we're going to go ahead and walk up here to the Motrax LED front turn signals. Those are a small upgrade. I'm going to cover everything small to big on here. Also, something you can't see, I've got a hidden dealer mode switch that puts the bike into dealer mode just with a flip of a switch instead of needing a tool for that. Also took off the luggage hooks. This bike had some luggage hooks on the back, on these back, this subframe, and I've removed those for a more sleeker look. I've got custom decals all over. You might not be able to see, but that's reflective blue with the white border. All my decals actually reflect blue at night when they're hit with headlights. I've got an axle flip mod, which is just simply flipping the axle around from the side it normally comes on. That helps with tightening of the chain so it doesn't get tighter or looser when it's on the other side when you tighten the bolt down. I've got a custom gas cap, polish ring, and a blue cap. It's from a guy called Gas Cap Dude on eBay. It's kind of hard to see, it's a little dark out here, but it's blue and polished. I've got taken all my frame labels off. If you want to back up here on the video, this frame used to have all kinds of warning labels and things like that. I know it's a silly mod, but I've done it. Makes the bike look a lot cleaner. I've had polished headers. These are the factory headers that came with the bike. They come black, but they are stainless. So instead of having anything chromed or buying new headers, you can actually have these polished out, which I did. I didn't do this myself. I had this done. It didn't cost me that much, and it was a lot less headache for me, but those headers are polished. Those are factory headers. Currently, I've got Michelin Pilot Power tires on there, 2 CTs. You can kind of show the tread pattern on those a little bit. I need a new set right now. They're pretty low, but those are my Pilot Powers. I have a custom Speed Seats logoed seat cover. I got that off eBay as well. People call it custom Speed Seats. It's got kind of a carbon fiber look to the weave, which matches all my carbon that I have on the bike now. I know in the first video I didn't have all this carbon, but you're getting ready to see a whole lot of carbon here in soon. On the other side of the bike, I've got an EK MVXZ 530 Quadra ring chain is what they call it. It's chrome. And I also got chrome front and rear pegs, rider and passenger pegs. I think I got those off eBay as well. Just simple little chrome pegs. Probably upgrade those more in the future. I have a smoked tail light here. It's LEDs, and the turn signals are integrated into that. So that's a brake light and turn signals. It's hard to see because it blends with my carbon fiber tail, but that's a smoked tail light as well. Up front, both my brake and clutch lever are from FP Racing, and they fold in a crash. So on this hinge right here, they would fold so that the lever may not break. You may avoid a costly repair of the whole lever. You may just have some rash on it. That's on both sides. I've got, you won't be able to see this, but I got a timing retard eliminator that's made by a guy named Matt the Hat on the TL Planet, and that helps with some of the how smooth the bike runs, and it also eliminates the electronic governor on the top end, so that's not an issue anymore. If we can get a shot of this, going to have to come around to the other side of the bike. I got something called a ride height adjuster made by a guy named Ziggy on the TL Planet. If you can get down there, it's kind of hard to see. It's this piece down here, this link in here, and that actually allows me to adjust the ride height, mostly for raising it, but you can lower it slightly as well. That's a very handy piece. I've got this whole tail assembly. Underneath, I've got a gap mod tray is what it's called, and I'll show you a couple things what that does. It cleans up the whole tail. Obviously there's no fender, there's no turn signals, there's no license plate bracket and all that, but also if you step around here, this whole area here above that Suzuki sticker that you can see straight through, that is normally filled up with the OEM plastic. Fender is all filled up in there where the battery normally goes. So that gap mod tray really cleans that space up and also takes a lot of weight off. Something you're not going to be able to see, I have a Rifleman's, it's the name of a guy on the TL Planet. He makes these throttle inserts. It's a 1/5 throttle insert, so what that does is gives me full action on my throttle with 20% less wrist action. These bikes had a pretty long action, so that helps with wrist fatigue, but it also makes the bike feel a lot more peppy. Also, I got something called a hump saver cable, that rear hump I have on the bike. Some of these bikes, you know, if you hit bumps or you have a lot of vibration or something, those the way the latch is made, sometimes there's been news and things of those coming off while you're riding, and of course they shatter. And with as much as I paid for that carbon fiber piece, which I'll zoom in on here in a second, it's a cable that if it does come off, it actually hangs on to the bike and you don't lose it. It doesn't hit the street and crash. So that's what that does. I've got some frame sliders. This pair is made by a guy named TLS Jed on the TL Planet, and a group buy on there. If you have a TL, you got to join this website, because this is where you're going to meet all these guys that make all this stuff. Something you're not going to be able to see, I have a absorbed glass matte battery upgrade. That's a battery that's basically leak proof, and the reason for that is because we talked about that gap mod tray. I have my battery relocated, and it's at basically a flat angle, so it's hidden. And with a battery that's a liquid battery, of course, you run risk of leakage or not working properly, but absorbed glass matte battery helps me put it at any angle without any issues. I've got this Kawasaki green paint. This is an actual ZX10, 2009 ZX10 paint code. And also I've matched my gauge needles. I used some of my touch-up paint when I pulled my dash apart. I match painted my gauge needles green to match the bike, and also instead of having white lights in there, I've got blue LEDs, so the gauges light up blue at night to match my blue logos and all my blue billet parts, and then the needles are green, so that even the gauges match the whole bike. You're not going to be able to see this. I have a Scott's billet oil filter. It's the S2 model. If you're getting one for this bike, it's Scott's S2. It's a billet oil filter. It's basically a reusable oil filter, and it's got a magnet in the bottom of it. If there's any type of metal or any shavings that come off into the oil, it'll pick it up, and it's a reusable filter, so you never have to buy filters again. You can clean and reuse it. I have a upgraded spring on a stick, they call it. It's from Traction Dynamics, 800-pound spring on a stick. It's a little heavier. The original spring for this bike was a little light. It's hard to see down there, but you see that black spring in there. The original one on this bike is red, and it's about, I think it's 675-pound spring on a stick, so it's quite a bit lighter. And for a heavy bike, and I'm a little bit of a heavier rider, I've needed to upgrade the spring weight. Also looks better in black. I've got some swing arm spools made by Suzuki. It's just simple anodized blue swing arm spools. We've probably all got swing arm spools, but those are from Suzuki. Not going to be able to see these, but I've got silver star headlamps in the headlight. You know, upgraded to like hyper white bulbs. My air filter, you can't see this right now, it's inside, but it's a K&N. I got that upgrade. I also have these Roaring Tories mirrors. I get a lot of people ask me about these mirrors a lot. I like them a lot. They rotate. You can pivot them out for a wider view, or you can pivot them in like I have them now for a little more sleek look and things like that. The mirror itself is a little bit smaller than OEM, but with all the different adjustments, I find that these just work just fine. I've got a Olin steering damper up here is a major upgrade from the factory job. This is a completely adjustable on-the-fly steering damper. Of course, made by Owens, one of the best in the business as far as that suspension and things go. And I also have their matching rear suspension down here. If you can see through the frame here, I think we talked about it in the first video, but I've got that as well. If you look at the headlight up here, this is a mod that a lot of people have done. A lot of people ask about when they see it done. Is this headlight has been completely reworked by me. It's used to be like a frosted look on the front of the headlight. I've taken that apart, used a clear plexiglass lens, and painted the inside to match the theme of the bike. And instead of it looking like an older frosted headlight from the 90s, which this bike was made, it looks a lot more updated, like a crystal clear headlight, like some of the newer bikes. So that's a big upgrade. You won't be able to see this, but I've got Barnett clutch springs in the clutch. A lot stiffer action and a lot better feel when you shift. I've got, this might be hard to see too, but on my front sprocket is a Vortex, which is the chrome front sprocket, and then the rear sprocket is also Vortex. It's anodized blue. It's probably dirty right now. I haven't cleaned it in a while. I've got on the other side of the bike, I've got Galfer rotors all the way around, the rear wave and the front waves. I'll briefly look at the rear wave, and then around here to the front. We don't have to show both sides, but I've got both wave rotors on the front and rear. Also, if you see the lines right there, the blue lines, I've got them up here on the brake line as well. I got, you know, both of them are blue Galfer stainless steel braided lines, and you won't be able to see these, but I've also got Galfer pads all the way around, front and rear, Galfer organic brake pads. On the other side of the bike, I have a driven folding shift lever. It's just a slight upgrade there. This piece, the actual shift lever itself, and if you know, in a small turnover, it will fold up. So again, it won't break as easy. It kind of folds like the other side, a little bit better than stock. I've got driven bar ends, anodized blue, and I've also got, those are also driven D3 grips. Those are made with a really good gel center, and they're actually color matched to my bike, Kawasaki green. And then I've got driven axle block sliders on the back. Those little blue anodized pieces by the end of the axle there, in case you drop the bike, they'll kind of protect your axle block and your back of your frame, back of your swing arm, I should say. Now here comes some of the carbon fiber. I've got a ton of carbon fiber. That's the big upgrades from before. We'll start with the M4 bolt-on exhaust. You've seen those in the last video. And then up front, we got a carbon fiber fender. This is actually a Ducati part. It fits pretty well on the bike. I just had to fab some small brackets, but the bolt holes in the front work just fine. I don't know if you can see if the sun's up or not, but that's, you know, that's 3M, twill weave, carbon fiber. All of it matches the same. We've got a Geelong Carbon Craft tank protector. I think we showed that in the first video. That's also actual real carbon. It's really thin, but it is real carbon. It matches the rest of the bike. All the other weave on there. I've got this low profile seat cover we talked about, this solo seat cover there, and the whole tail of the bike is carbon. The heel guards, carbon. All this carbon is from a guy named IP Paul. He used to have a business called IP Performance, but it's now called Zero Limits. www.zerolimits.co.uk is where you can find all these parts for this bike and many others. He does a heck of a job. I've also got the clock surround, which is the gauges. That whole surround and all these infills, all this infill, the trim panels all around here. You see the trim panels in there, and the windscreen as well. That's all carbon from him, as well as the ram air vents and the whole tail of the bike and the rear hugger, the tire hugger in there. That's all solid carbon fiber, as well as the BST wheels. If we can get a look at those. Those wheels are Blackstone Tek. They're BSTs for short. Those wheels are solid carbon fiber, except for the aluminum hub. And I'll show the front one here real quick. I think with all the carbon I have and with the carbon wheels, I believe I've taken about 40 pounds off the bike. I haven't measured everything yet, weighed everything, as well as the lower plastics here. Even though the bike didn't have lower plastics on it, these lower carbon plastics don't weigh a whole lot. Even though I've added that part, it's super lightweight. That, I believe, is all the carbon that I have. I'm going to move up to the top triple clamp. That's, if you remember from the first video, van driver who makes all this billet, he made my top triple clamp there, as well as the front brake reservoir and the clutch, the clear clutch cover. I saw it in the first video. Everybody loves that part. It's beautiful. That pressure plate that's inside there, as well as the blue retainers inside there, and the little oil plug. Those are all separate purchases from him. But and the rear brake reservoir is also a billet blue by van driver. You can't see this part, it's too small to show, but he also makes a return spring and seat for the rear brake. I have that in green billet. Two Brothers clip-ons. Those clip-ons adjust in three different, they adjust up and down, side to side, and the angle also adjusts, so those are quite nice. Those are the only two clip-ons I've found that work with this bike. Let's see what else here. Oh yeah, I have a sprocket cover from van driver. That's on the other side of the bike. That's also in billet blue, just covers the front sprocket, replaces that big ugly piece of plastic that's on the bike from the factory. It's probably hard to see right now, it's so dark out, but I have that. And then we have a couple more parts here. So a couple of things you can't see. I did a thermal mod, which this bike had a really poor design from the 97 for the thermostat. So I've upgraded that to a newer model of thermostat hoses, as well as I have blue Samco high performance hoses in there as well. Can't see those, unfortunately. And then the most recent thing I did, and the last thing I'm going to show you, is the forks and radial brakes. These are GSXR 2004 forks and Takiko 4-pot calibers, which are radial, as you can see, which is a huge upgrade, a better feel, and a huge upgrade from the OEM forks and brakes. So I believe I got it all covered. As you can see, a lot of things have changed on the bike. A lot more time and a lot more money invested. I appreciate it. Leave comments if you want, and until then, we'll see you around.